Hey everyone, it's Ed Kime from over at Quantcha, and in this video we're going to take a look at our calendar search feature. The calendar search feature is designed after the options search engine, so if you're familiar with our options search engine experience, you're going to be able to pick up the calendar search immediately. The options search is based on finding an optimal same expiration trade for a specific view. And by view we mean for a specific stock at a specific expiration, you have an underlying price range. So for example, if you think ABC is going to close in the range of 100 to 110 on the December expiration, you're able to plug that into our options search engine, and it helps you find a great trade for with options that all expire on that same date. And then once you locate that list of trades, you can then dive into the trade analyzer to get more specific details to analyze the trade in depth. The calendar search follows that same model. The user experience is very similar, and it's optimized for the calendar search experience. Now, the calendar search itself is intended to find optimal calendar spreads, which means typically a long and a short put or call at different expirations. If you're dealing with vertical trades, stay with the options search engine. But if you're looking for calendar trades, and this could also be a put and a call that are long or short, or it could be a double long call, double short put, whatever it happens to be, then the calendar search is going to help you find the optimal trades you're looking for. It uses the same view system as the option search engine, which means that as you model in specific option search views, you're able to switch over to the calendar search and it'll take that view with it. So for example, a specific price range for a stock on a certain date will come with you. But instead of the expiration date being the focus of the search experience, it uses a target analysis date. And you'll notice that from the breadcrumb at the top of the screen. It'll say calendar search for what the underlying stock is, and then it'll have a list of the expiration dates. But those expiration dates are simply the date that the analysis is occurring. Unlike the option search engine, where we have a specific expiration date that we can provably analyze all the options for based on their intrinsic value, the calendar search requires that you have two options that expire on or after the analysis date, so that we know that one or both of them will still have time value remaining, and then we do the analysis based on the implied volatility that is expected at that time. You can also switch between target analysis dates from that dropdown. However, keep in mind that your near leg must expire on or after the analysis date. Otherwise, it gets filtered out. And this is because we don't want to have a scenario where you have a January option and then let's say a June option. If you pick a March expiration, then we can't pick that one date and make an intelligent decision about how to price the January option, whether it was longer, where it closed at the time in January, to be able to effectively model the returns for your trade. We do offer that in the book manager if you want to get into that level of depth, but it's a different scenario when you work with the book manager. And so check out the series on that if you're interested in more detail on how we do that modeling. But suffice it to say, the important note here is that when you're using the calendar search, that your near leg must expire on or after the analysis date. The calendar search also provides a unique set of filters, specifically for expiration, strikes, Greeks, and pricing. And these are things that are intended to be specific for the calendar experience to help you zero in on the kinds of trades you'd be looking for when you do a calendar trade relative to a vertical trade. In the cases where we have near leg filters, because we provide filters by the leg, the near leg filters are absolute, meaning you say the expiration range is how far from today, whereas the expiration offset in the far leg says based on what you picked for today's near leg, when that option comes up, it will determine which options to consider for far leg for expiration. So in the example that's shown here, we've got an expiration range that shows 2 to 6 weeks for the near leg, which means that if today is January 1st, it would say pick options that expire between January 15th and February, let's say 28th, just for the sake of some easy math there. So that's January 15th out to February 15th. So that's a 4-week-ish range of options that it would choose for the near leg. Now the far leg offset here is shown as 4 to 8 weeks. What that means is that it would go out 4 to 8 weeks from the option that's being evaluated in the near leg range, which means that if as the engine works, it picks the January 15th option for the near leg, then the far leg options would be 4 to 8 weeks out from that January 15th date. However, on the other hand, if it went out to the February 15th date using the 6-week end of that near leg spectrum, then the far leg would be 4 to 8 weeks from that February 15th date. And the idea here is this way, when you're zeroing in on those trades, you can be sure that you're looking at an expiration range that is going to be 4 to 8 weeks between your near and far leg, regardless of what you set up as the near leg. This will make a little more sense in the demo. Now, let's talk about how the calendar search fits in with the general Quantcha options platform workflow. We currently have the options search engine, which we've talked a little bit about. That's where you find vertical trades based on a view that you've set up. And this one searches across that specific option chain using dozens of different strategies, including condors and conversions and all kinds of stuff that you have, covered calls as well as spreads, as traditional credit and debit spreads for 2 calls or 2 puts. We also have on the other end of the spectrum the screeners, and these are global screeners that search across all stocks for a specific strategy. So for example, if you wanted to search the entire market for covered calls, you'd use the covered call screener. Calendar search fits in between those two. It's actually much more on the side of the option search engine because it really works the same way as the option search engine works, except that it's designed to work for multi-expiration trades. So that's when you have those 2-legged calendar trades, and you're long or short, either near and far leg, and then you're using puts or calls. And it's also flexible. So if you wanted to say, hey, I'm long put near leg and I'm short put for the far leg, you can do that. But you could also say, like, I want to be short a call for the near leg and I want to be short a put for the far leg, or whatever you want. Any combination of long and short puts and calls, and you can be able to find those trades using this set of functionality. Now, once you find a trade in one of these 3 parts of the platform, those are all designed to be fed into the trade analyzer, which is where you do your basic trade review. You can see the execution plan, you can get the P&L, the Greeks for the positions, as well as some basic customization, and you'll be able to optimize for your budget, if your brokerage, that kind of stuff. Now, once you've found a trade that you really like and it fits in well, generally what you do is you'll send it to the book manager, where you get full modeling flexibility, where you can check any date, you can check for different volatility scenarios, different interest scenarios, you can check to see what happens across expirations when trades get assigned or if they have to be cash settled. There's a lot of deep analysis that goes into there that does a lot of crunching. It also helps you if you want to analyze it relative to your current holdings. So, for example, if you're holding a position in the stock already, if you have, for example, options or you have shares, it'll merge it into it and show you the before and after if you were to apply this trade. And that's an important part. But of course, alternatively, you could just send it from the trade analyzer to the trade ticket if you have an integrated brokerage account for a platform that we are integrated with that supports trading, such as TD Ameritrade or E-Trade and others. Now, and of course, in the book manager, you can send those to the trade ticket if they fit in. If you decide that the changes you're looking at making to your portfolio are the ones you want to apply, then you can go to a trade ticket and start that whole experience where you place and manage your order. So let's go ahead and dive over into the demo. So we'll start off here on the Quantcha homepage. I'm going to go into take me to the tools to bring me to the dashboard. Now, one of the things you'll notice here is on the dashboard, there is now a top-level item for I want to find a calendar spread for a specific stock. And we can search on, let's say, Microsoft here, being the default. I'm going to click through. Now, there's a lot of different ways to get to the calendar search experience. For example, you'll see it in the drop-downs for different parts of the tools, depending on where you are in the trade analyzer or the option search. But for now, we went directly from the dashboard. We've got the usual experience, just like you'd expect in the options search engine, including the model designer. And then we get into the details for the calendar search, which is again very consistent with the options search engine. So by default, the way it's set up is that the near leg filters are for short calls 2 to 6 weeks out, and then the far leg filters are for long calls that are offset by 4 to 8 weeks. So this is generally considered to be a long calendar spread because you'll usually pay to open this trade, because generally speaking what you'll do is you'll buy a long dated option and then you'll sell a short dated option that'll either finance it or something like a poor man's covered call, as they call them, when you prefer to buy a call instead of buying the shares to cover your short call. And there's a bunch of different reasons you could do this, but the point is the option search experience here for the calendar search, it doesn't matter what your motivation is. You can configure it to find whatever it is you're looking for. So let's say, for example, here we've got the near leg filters. We're looking at calls that are short, 2 to 6 weeks out, and you'll see like all these short calls that are shown. In this case, this video is being done on February 28th, so you can see 2 to 6 weeks out includes that March 19th options. And that seems to be a pretty good week here because we can see a lot of these are being sold, the 225, 227.50. Those must be pretty juicy options because they're all kind of being sold in that range. So that term seems to be pretty good. And we're noticing a lot of these April 16th options being bought. So the engine's kind of looking at the view we have. By the way, this is a neutral view that we defaulted to. Since we're looking at calendar call options here, let's go ahead and pick a moderately bullish view. And you notice that updates the UI here just like it would for the other one. This is a plus or minus volatility range movement. So in this case, the moderately bullish is saying a 0 to +1 volatility movement based on the implied volatility of the underlying. And we've got that covered in docs, so go check out docs.quantcha.com if you want more information on how all of this works. But for now, we're going to go ahead, change the model. You'll notice the trades update pretty much immediately, and now we're looking at a bunch of trades. Slight adjustments, the March 19th and the 16th are still pretty good, but you'll notice now, because we're more bullish, we're buying what looks like to be right at the money options, and it's suggesting selling these far out of the money options because we're modeling here for a pretty big jump. We're also modeling for a change that's only 1 week out. So you'll notice here we've got this date there, which is the next one. We could, from the target list here, we could pick all these different ones. But if we went out to, let's say, the 26th, what you'll notice is that a lot of the trades are going to disappear because the near leg has to expire on or after this date here, this 26th. So you'll see the 26th is pretty much the earliest one. There might be some for the first week of April just because 2 to 6 weeks from now only gets us into the first week of April. So there might be some for there. But let's take a look at how we can filter down something here. Like, let's say for what we're doing is maybe what we want to do is we want to, instead of this, we'll go back to our, we'll keep that date as is, and we'll say, okay, for the delta, we want the delta we're going to sell, we're going to say we're selling the 70 to 80 delta options. And just because to be consistent, we'll also say we want to buy the 70 to 80 delta options for that further expiration. So now we've got our short calls are going to be 2 to 6 weeks out, 70 to 80, which is about that range. Now 70 to 80 delta, this means it's going to be in the money. So we're looking at, these are expected to be, as you can see, these strike prices are well below the current price. And then we're also buying those ones that are further out. We probably actually would want to switch this and say, hey, maybe instead what we'll do is we're going to sell the 20 to 30s, and then we're going to buy the 70 to 80 because because we're so bullish, we want to find a trade that fits that. And you'll notice again, this all sets up like we want. We are seeing these trades here. It's selling these March ones, buying these May ones, and they're all different prices and ranges. There's one for April here, and we can see the different trade credits, and we can see the amount. And maybe what we'll do is we can come down here and say we want net delta per contract. So let's say you're placing a trade and you're doing a calendar spread. Let's say we reset all the options we've got here. So we'll go back to the original offset for the expiration range and the offset. Maybe what we want is we're looking for trades that are like -5 to +5 delta. So this is like pretty much delta neutral calendar spreads. Obviously there's gamma risk, but for the sake of now, we can see we've now filtered down to these trades where selling this at the money, basically at the money 26th of March one, and then buying this 240, which is slightly out of the money May one, will give us a fairly neutral one. And you'll expect to see lots of these sort of like nice butterfly-ish P&Ls because that's what it matches. So anyway, we get those trades. The other thing just to point out here is this is a short call and this is a long call. We could say 2 long calls if we wanted to. I mean, it's going to mess up because of our filters down here. This doesn't really mean anything. I just want to show that you can do buying 2 calls, or you can say I want to buy a put at this on the near leg and I want to buy a call on the long leg. I mean, whatever it happens to be, you can set up these trades however you like. I mean, you're going to get some weird P&Ls depending on how those work out. But let's go ahead and reset everything again. And this happens to reset back to where we were. And now we'll take a look. We'll click through on this particular trade. And we see we're now in the trade analyzer, and we get the same thing. Like we get the view on these, and so this next earnings announcement, and it says expiration here. This is an expiration for that particular date. So we're seeing what it's doing is it's analyzing this on this date. So these, because we can't really pick one X, we can't really find a definitive result like we could for a vertical trade. Like if you took a vertical trade, which was same expiration, and we did an analysis for that expiration date, we know that those options are going to be worth their intrinsic value. And then there's some liquidity that could potentially factor in, but we can be pretty definitive about what the value is going to be. We can't quite do that here if there was anything that was expiring before. For example, if our analysis date was before both of these options, we can just use the value of implied volatility to measure what we would expect the value of the trade to be. And you can see this with the implied range, or the model range, and the implied range gives us a P&L for that. And we get all this cool information just like you'd expect elsewhere. But we can also say further that since we're looking at this March 26th date, we have the option to go to dates earlier than that. So we can see what this trade would look like on the 19th. We could say what the trade would look like on March 12th, further in as we get closer and closer in. And then we could jump out and we could say, all right, let's go back to the calendar search results, maybe move this out to April 1st, and again, like start the whole process over again. And so there's a lot of filtering and sorting. You can also save your different calendar searches. And the calendar searches are saved, and the reason we do this relative, like the reason we have an expiration range that's not a specific date, but it's a number of weeks out, is that you can design a calendar search now that goes out this many weeks and then looks for relative far legs based on this offset, so that you can just use this over and over for years, and it'll always give you the results based on what you configured here. So if it's January today and you say 2 to 6 week out, then that's going to be the second week of January through the end of February. And then if you run this again in June, it'll be the second week of June through the end of July, and just makes it easier to analyze that in order to be able to reuse those things. And the experience too is pretty neat, where you can take for example, a view here where we've got this 212 to 253 view, and if I jump over to search results, which is our options search engine, it's going to bring that with us. So as we make changes, like let's say go 220 to to 260, right? I'm going to apply that here, and then if I jump over to the calendar search, it's going to remember that's what my model was. This way, as I go back and forth trying to decide whether the vertical trades are better or the calendar trades, and really zero in on it. And we do plan to keep these experiences separate for the foreseeable future, because the goals people have when they're trading vertical trades versus trading calendar trades or anything horizontal, diagonal, etc., they tend to be different. And so we're trying to kind of optimize tools for certain scenarios. Now, as I showed before, let's say, for example, we just take this calendar call spread, pick at random. We can then take this and throw it at a trade ticket. So like with one click, I can be over here and looking at, potentially placing that in my account. Or what I can do, I click the back button there on my mouse. So I'm back in the trade analyzer view. I can say model and book, and I can pick a specific book I'm looking at, like this paper book. This one I think already has a position in it. Actually, it doesn't have a position in it. So we can see that this is treated as new track changes. And now we have the full power of the book manager behind us. So we can do everything. Like we can say, all right, we're going to use a different interest rate here. We're going to set, this to be, 5% interest, because we're being unrealistic, and we can say we're going to hard code the volatility to be, we're thinking volatility drop to 25, and we're going to cash settle the options. And then what's also pretty neat is we can then jump out and say, even though we know here that we're April 1st to May 21st, we can then jump out and say, hey, go to the May 21st expiration and model this using this thing, and we'll assume that we're going to always exercise the options. And you guys know, obviously it's a little wacky here, but we've got a full course on the book manager as well on our docs.quantcha.com site, so check that out, because from end to end, from finding calendar trades, analyzing the trade analyzer, and then merging them into your portfolio and managing them for long term in the book manager, and then actually placing orders and managing them and then tracking them in your portfolio, we've got everything you need for calendar trading. And so this is the demo we wanted to show you to give you a real idea of what's really possible with the Quantcha option suite. So let's talk about next steps. Well, go ahead and check out our docs where we've got the latest information, including a bunch of free courses. We're working on some more stuff for the calendar search. Right now we have an article that details what we've talked about mostly here in the video. In addition, we are still evaluating filters and sorting and other features, so if you have feedback, please reach out to us at hello@quantcha.com. As with everything else in the platform, it is a work in progress and we continue to enhance and improve. We always try to add more value every time we do a release. So sometimes they're going to be small things we slipstream in, but if there are larger features, like this calendar search is largely driven by customers and users over the last 6 months or so, please let us know. We do definitely want to provide the best tools we can, and it always helps us to understand the scenarios you're trying to solve for. So if you have a specific trading scenario you're trying to zero in on, we can usually let you know either how our tools can be used to do that, or we can use it as feedback in order to enhance them so it's easier in the future. But as always, good luck and good hunting.